When Clair Obscur Expedition 33 snagged 12 nominations at the Game Awards, nobody expected it to obliterate an 11-year record held by gaming legends. This indie darling just rewrote history, and the shockwaves are still rippling through the industry. But that's just the beginning of this wild story, because what happened behind the scenes is even more jaw-dropping than the numbers suggest. Think you know everything about the Game Awards 2025? Think again, because when Jeff Keighley dropped the nominations, the gaming world collectively lost its mind. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 didn't just win big, it became the most nominated game in the entire history of the Game Awards, crushing previous records held by massive franchises with billion-dollar budgets. We're talking about an independent game from Sandfall Interactive that came out of nowhere and is now breathing down the neck of industry titans. The previous record holder was The Last of Us Part 2 back in 2020 with 11 nominations, and everyone thought that was untouchable. Wrong. This French fantasy RPG just casually waltzed in and grabbed 12, making history in the process. What makes this even crazier is that 3 of those nominations are in the same category, something that has literally never happened before in Game Awards history. The Best Performance category tells a story that's almost too wild to believe. Ben Starr, Charlie Cox, and Jennifer English all scored nominations for their work in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. That's 3 actors from one game competing against each other in the same category. Ben Starr voices Verso, Charlie Cox brings Gustave to life, and Jennifer English plays Mael. The insanity doesn't stop there, because these aren't just random voice actors, we're talking legitimate Hollywood talent. Charlie Cox is the face of Marvel's Daredevil, and Ben Starr was already nominated for Best Performance back in 2023 for Final Fantasy XVI. Now he's back again, proving this isn't some fluke. The game also features Andy Serkis, the legendary motion capture artist behind Gollum in Lord of the Rings. When you stack that kind of star power into an indie game, you know something special is happening. But here's where things get even more twisted. Ghost of Yotei, which many people considered a lock for Game of the Year, got completely snubbed from that category despite racking up 8 nominations across the board. PlayStation fans are absolutely furious because this PS5 exclusive was supposed to dominate, and instead, it's sitting on the sidelines watching Clair Obscur steal the spotlight. Ghost of Yotei did manage to score nominations for Best Art Direction, Best Audio Design, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, and Best Action Adventure Game. So it's not like the game got ignored completely. But missing out on Game of the Year? That's gotta sting, especially when Sony Interactive Entertainment is the most nominated publisher this year with 19 total nominations. Death Stranding 2 on the Beach landed 8 nominations, tying with Ghost of Yotei for second place. Hideo Kojima's latest masterpiece is up for Game of the Year, and considering the original Death Stranding was nominated back in 2019 but didn't win, this feels like a redemption arc waiting to happen. Kojima Productions went all out with this sequel, and the nominations prove critics are taking notice. The game scored nods for Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, Best Score and Music, and Best Audio Design. It's basically hitting every major creative category you can think of. But can it dethrone Clair Obscur? That's the million-dollar question everyone's asking right now. The Game of the Year category itself is absolutely stacked. We've got Clair Obscur Expedition 33 leading the charge, but it's facing serious competition from Death Stranding 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Every single one of these games has a legitimate case for taking home the crown. Donkey Kong Bonanza brought Nintendo back into the conversation with its innovative gameplay mechanics. Hades 2 proved that lightning can strike twice by somehow improving on a game that was already near perfection. Hollow Knight Silksong has been one of the most anticipated sequels in indie gaming history, and it finally delivered. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 pushed the boundaries of historical RPGs to places nobody thought possible. This isn't just a strong lineup, it's potentially the most competitive Game of the Year race the Game Awards has ever seen. What's really fascinating is watching how publishers performed this year. Sony Interactive Entertainment dominated with 19 nominations, but it's worth noting that Kepler Interactive, the publisher behind Clair Obscur Expedition 33, grabbed 13 nominations. For an independent publisher going up against giants like Sony, Microsoft, and Electronic Arts who tied at 10 nominations each, that's absolutely remarkable. The industry is clearly shifting, and smaller studios are proving they can compete with the big boys on the highest stage. When you look at previous years, it was always the massive AAA publishers hogging all the nominations. Not anymore. The playing field is leveling out, and it's creating some of the most exciting competition we've seen in years. Arc Raiders, which many fans were rooting for, only managed to snag one nomination for Best Multiplayer. That's it. One. People are calling it the biggest snub of the year because this game had serious buzz leading up to the announcements. Former professional FPS player Shroud even went on record saying Arc Raiders should win Game of the Year over Clair Obscur Expedition 33, though he admitted multiplayer gamers are probably in the minority when it comes to these awards. The fact that it didn't even get nominated for Game of the Year has the competitive gaming community up in arms. Some are arguing there should be separate categories for multiplayer and single-player games because comparing them directly doesn't make sense. Others think the voting jury just didn't appreciate what Arc Raiders brought to the table. Either way, it's controversy that's got everyone talking. The real story here goes deeper than just nominations and snubs. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 represents something bigger happening in the gaming industry. This is a turn-based RPG inspired by Belle Epoque France, a time period you almost never see in video games. The story follows volunteers on Expedition 33 as they tried to destroy the Paintress, a mysterious being responsible for the Gamage, an annual event that makes everyone aged 33 or older vanish. It's dark, it's creative, and it's completely different from anything else on the market. Sandfall Interactive took a massive risk by building a game around such a unique concept, and now they're being rewarded for that courage. In an industry that often plays it safe with sequels and remakes, seeing an original IP dominate like this sends a powerful message to developers everywhere. Voting is live right now on the Game Awards website, and it runs through December 10 at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Fan votes count for 10% of the final decision, with the remaining 90% coming from a jury of over 150 media publications and content creators. That blend of public opinion and industry expertise is supposed to balance things out, but it also means your vote actually matters. If you're passionate about seeing a particular game win, now's the time to make your voice heard. The award show itself goes down December 11th at the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles, and it's streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, and for the first time ever, Amazon Prime Video. Jeff Keighley is hosting again, and you know there's going to be massive game announcements, world premieres, and probably a few surprises nobody sees coming. What makes this year different is the level of competition across every single category. Best Independent Game features Clair Obscur Expedition 33 going up against Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, Blueprints, Ball X Pit, and Absalom. Best Debut Indie Game has its own stacked roster. Best Score and Music pits Christopher Larkin's Hollow Knight Silksong soundtrack against Darren Korb's Hades 2 score, Lorien Testard's work on Clair Obscur, and compositions from industry veterans on Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yochie. These aren't throwaway categories with obvious winners. Every single award is going to be a battle, and that's what makes this year's Game Awards so compelling to watch. The numbers tell their own story, too. The Game Awards 2024 broke viewership records with an estimated 154 million live streams, which was 31% higher than the previous year. This year's show is positioned to potentially shatter that record again because of how competitive everything is. When you've got an indie game making history, major franchises fighting for redemption, PlayStation exclusives getting controversial snubs, and multiplayer fans demanding their games get more respect, you've created the perfect storm for massive audience engagement. People aren't just going to tune in to see who wins. They're tuning in because they're invested in these games, these stories, and these developers who poured everything into creating something special. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 could legitimately sweep multiple awards on December 11. If it manages to win even half of its 12 nominations, it'll be one of the most successful nights any game has ever had at the Game Awards. Baldur's Gate 3 won 6 awards in 2023, which was considered absolutely dominant. Could Clair Obscur beat that? The possibility is very real. But it's also possible that the votes get split across so many strong contenders that no single game walks away with everything. That uncertainty is what makes award shows exciting. You can analyze predictions and trends all you want, but until those winners are announced live, anything can happen. The voting jury includes gaming publications from around the world, which means this isn't just a Western-centric perspective. Asian markets, European critics, South American outlets, they all get a say in who takes home these awards. That global representation matters because gaming is a worldwide phenomenon, and different regions often have different tastes. A game that dominates in North America might not resonate the same way in Japan or Europe. The fact that Clair Obscur Expedition 33 managed to impress voters across all these different markets speaks to how universally appealing the game is. It's not just scoring well in one region while flopping elsewhere. It's connecting with people everywhere. And that's incredibly rare for any game, let alone an independent title from a relatively unknown studio. December 11 is shaping up to be one of the most memorable nights in Game Awards history. Whether you're Team Clair Obscur, rooting for Death Stranding 2 to finally get its moment, hoping Ghost of Yotei pulls off an upset despite the Game of the Year snub, or backing any of the other incredible nominees, this is a celebration of what makes gaming special. These aren't just products being sold to consumers. These are experiences crafted by passionate teams who wanted to tell stories, create worlds, and give players something they'd never forget. The nominations prove that dedication still matters, that taking creative risks can pay off, and that you don't need the biggest budget to make the biggest impact. Watch the show, cast your votes, and witness history being made.